I stood by the staircase, frozen. The sound of my husband's voice drifted from the kitchen. Warm, familiar. But what he was saying? That wasn't the man I married. "I'm just tired of pretending," Daniel said. "She's like dead weight now. She can't hear a word, and honestly, it's peaceful." My heart dropped. Dead weight? I pressed my back against the wall, holding my breath. I shouldn't have been able to hear this. According to everyone, including Daniel, I was still deaf. 4 weeks ago, I couldn't hear the sound of my own footsteps, but 2 days ago, everything changed. I got my hearing back, and I didn't tell anyone, not even him. "Daniel, I told you from the start," his mother's voice joined in, sharp, cold. "She was never your level. I begged you not to marry her." I closed my eyes. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Grace, my mother-in-law, had smiled at me just an hour ago. She brought me soup, asked how I was feeling, pretended to care. "I know, Mom," Daniel sighed. "But now I'm stuck. People would hate me if I left her while she's like this. Like this? Like I'm broken? They thought I couldn't hear, that I was still trapped in silence, that my world was still dark and muffled. But I heard every single word, and each one pierced deeper than the last. "I should have married Vanessa when I had the chance," Daniel muttered. My stomach twisted. Vanessa. I hadn't heard that name in years. His ex. The one who called me plain and boring at our engagement party. The one who flirted with him in front of me at a charity dinner. He had always told me she meant nothing. Now I knew the truth. Mrs. Grace chuckled, then lowered her voice slightly. "Well, what about the money? Has she signed anything yet?" My heart jumped. "What money?" Daniel asked. "Her mother's estate, Daniel," Grace snapped. "The house, the land, that bank account in her name. You said she hasn't touched it since the funeral, that she's still grieving. Now's your chance. Make her sign power of attorney. If she's really deaf and confused, she won't know what she's agreeing to." My mouth went dry. They wanted my mother's money, the inheritance I never spoke much about, the house I grew up in, the savings account my mother had opened in my name when I was just 10 years old, the same one I refused to touch after she passed away last year. I told Daniel I wasn't ready, that it still felt too sacred. And now they were plotting to take it from me. "She'll trust you," Grace went on. "She always does. Just put the papers in front of her and smile. She won't ask questions." "I'll try," Daniel muttered. "But if she doesn't sign, we'll need to think of another way." My body went numb. Another way? I didn't cry. Not yet. My hands shook. I pressed them against my stomach to calm myself. I wanted to scream, to burst in and throw something, anything. But I didn't. Instead, I turned away. I walked slowly back toward the guest room. Each step felt heavy, like I was dragging a part of me with it. I had heard enough, more than enough. I sat on the bed and stared at the wall. My ears were ringing, not from injury this time, but from shock. 4 weeks ago, I would have never doubted Daniel. He was my rock, my protector, my best friend. When I lost my hearing in that accident, he was there every day, helping me learn how to communicate with gestures, guiding me, loving me. Or so I thought. Now? I didn't even know who he was. The scariest part wasn't what he said. It was how calm he sounded. Like plotting to betray me wasn't even hard. But I heard it all. And I wasn't going to forget. Have you ever overheard something you weren't supposed to, and it changed how you saw someone forever? Tell me in the comments. What would you do if you were in Anna's shoes? Don't forget to like and follow for the next chapter. This story is only just beginning. I never thought silence could be so loud. It started with a sharp flash, a blur of movement. I had just picked up groceries and was walking toward my car. A cyclist came speeding around the corner, and I barely jumped out of the way. But I slipped. My head slammed against the curb. Everything after that was quiet. I woke up in the hospital, blinking against the harsh lights. I saw Daniel's face, his mouth was moving, but I couldn't hear a thing. Not a whisper, not a beep, not even the sound of my own breath. The silence was complete. Doctors called it temporary sensorineural hearing loss. They told Daniel it might take days, weeks, or maybe longer to return, if it ever did. I watched the doctor's lips move slowly as he explained it to me. Daniel squeezed my hand, his mouth forming words I couldn't understand without looking closely. I nodded, pretending to grasp it all. But inside, I was terrified. The first few days at home were a blur of lip reading, flashcards, and pointing. Daniel installed an app on his phone to transcribe what he said. He even wrote "I love you" on a sticky note and left it on my bedside table. At first, I clung to those small things, his smile, his gentle touch. I told myself we'd get through this, but slowly, things began to shift. The sticky notes stopped. The transcribing app barely got used. Sometimes he spoke while facing away from me, and when I tapped his shoulder for clarity, he sighed like I was a burden. I began noticing how rarely he made eye contact anymore. There was one evening, I remember it vividly, when I walked into the living room and saw him talking on the phone. He didn't notice me. He kept pacing, smiling, laughing. I couldn't hear a single sound, but I could see the expression on his face. He looked free. When he turned and saw me, he paused, the smile fading slightly. His lips moved fast. "Oh, didn't see you there," I guessed from reading them. Then he walked past me into the kitchen. I stood there, staring after him, wondering what I had missed. There were more moments like that. Little things. Cold gestures, quiet avoidance. Sometimes he'd bring me food and set it down without a word. No note, no explanation, just silence, between us and within me. And then came Grace. His mother arrived one morning with a bouquet of flowers. She smiled politely and kissed my cheek. I signed "thank you," though I wasn't sure she understood. She sat on the couch across from me and began talking. But not to me, not really. She barely looked at my face. Her lips moved fast, her hands rested calmly in her lap, like I wasn't even there. I focused hard, reading her lips as best I could. She doesn't even realize how lucky she is. My son could have married someone with ambition. She smiled at me like nothing had been said. I blinked, trying not to react. Later that afternoon, Daniel stepped out to get takeout. Grace stayed behind and paced the living room, speaking softly under her breath. But she didn't face me. She clearly didn't think I could follow a word. I couldn't hear her tone, but I could read enough. "She'll never see it coming," I caught. "Daniel just needs to act sweet, and she'll hand it all over. She always does." I wasn't sure what she meant then, but the way she smirked made my skin crawl. That night, I sat on the floor of the guest room with a notebook in my lap. I started writing down everything: expressions, gestures, half-read conversations, things that didn't sit right. Even if I wasn't sure what it all meant yet, I needed a record. I needed proof that I wasn't imagining it. I didn't know what was happening behind my back, but I was starting to feel it in my bones. And something deep inside me whispered, "This silence is hiding something." I wanted to believe it was all in my head. That maybe I was being too sensitive. That maybe Daniel was just tired, stressed, overwhelmed by everything that had happened. That maybe Grace didn't mean the things she said. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't unsee the look in Daniel's eyes. It was the look that hurt the most. He still smiled, but not the way he used to. It didn't reach his eyes. It didn't warm me like it used to. His smile now was thin, tight, polite, like a mask he wore so he wouldn't have to explain why he wasn't really there anymore. Every day I studied him. It's strange. When you can't hear, you learn to see people differently. You don't just read lips. You read their eyes, their shoulders, the twitch of their mouth. You feel the mood in the room before you even step into it. And something about Daniel felt wrong. One night, I walked into the living room to find him sitting on the couch, holding his phone close to his ear. He didn't notice me at first. His lips were moving fast, his eyebrows raised. A big smile stretched across his face, not the tight one he gave me. This was different. Free. Lively. I stood by the doorway trying to make out the words. I caught a few, "I miss that," and "No, she has no clue." He suddenly laughed, full and real, and my stomach twisted. When he finally saw me, he flinched. The smile vanished in an instant. He lowered the phone and gave me the other smile, the fake one. He mouthed slowly, "Just work stuff." I nodded, but inside I was screaming. Work stuff didn't make him light up like that. Work didn't make his shoulders relax or his eyes dance. Whoever he was talking to, they weren't from the office. Later that week, I noticed something else. Daniel started leaving his phone face down on the table. Always. And he'd take it with him everywhere, even to the bathroom. Before, he never cared. We trusted each other. Now, he acted like it was a ticking bomb he had to guard. I pretended not to notice. I didn't want to start a fight I couldn't argue in. I couldn't yell. I couldn't defend myself with words if things escalated. I was still trapped in silence, and he knew it. But I had my eyes, and my notebook. I kept writing down everything. The time he came home, what he looked like, how many hours he spent on his phone, what words I caught from his mouth when he thought I wasn't paying attention. The entries got longer every day. Friday. Said he was working late. Shirt smelled like perfume. Sunday. Sat in the car for 20 minutes before coming inside, talking on phone, laughed, didn't notice me watching. Wednesday. Called me hon while texting someone, didn't look at me once during dinner. It hurt. Every little thing felt like a paper cut. Not enough to break me, but enough to sting. Again and again. I tried to find pieces of the old Daniel, the one who stayed up late rubbing my back when I had migraines, the one who danced with me in the kitchen, even when there was no music. The one who kissed my forehead and said, "You're my whole world." But he wasn't here anymore. And even though I couldn't hear it, I felt the silence between us growing louder every day. I felt her energy before I saw her. Grace, my mother-in-law, walked through the front door wearing a bright red coat, heels clicking on the floor like she owned the house. She gave me a quick glance and waved like I was a neighbor's child instead of her son's wife. Her lips moved. "Still can't hear?" she asked, then gave a little smirk. I just nodded. There was no hug, no kind smile, just the usual, fake politeness layered over something bitter, something sharp. Daniel helped her with her luggage and mouthed something to me. "Mom's staying the week." I hadn't agreed to that, but I nodded again. It wasn't like I could say no. She spent the first evening acting sugary sweet, at least when Daniel was in the room. She'd bring me tea, ask if I needed help, even touched my shoulder gently like she cared. But I saw it in her eyes. She didn't mean a word of it. The next morning, I was sitting on the couch reading a book when she came in, wearing a silky robe and carrying her coffee. She looked at me, then turned her head to the side, away from me, and started talking. Not to me. About me. "She just sits there like a piece of furniture," I read from her lips. "How does he live like this?" I froze. She didn't think I could read her lips. She didn't think I was watching. That I could understand her. Her mouth kept moving. "He gave up his whole life to play nursemaid to a woman who can't even hold a conversation. She doesn't deserve him." My stomach turned. I lowered my book slowly and stared at the wall ahead of me. I didn't want her to see my face change. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction. Daniel came in moments later, and her expression flipped instantly. She smiled, called him darling, and asked if he wanted eggs. He nodded, kissed her on the cheek, and went upstairs to shower. The moment he left, her whole face shifted again. She sat down beside me, turned away, and spoke in a soft, mocking tone, just loud enough that I could see every word. "You know, if I were you, I'd be ashamed. Keeping him tied down like this? You can't hear, you can't help, and soon enough he'll get tired of being the good guy." She sipped her coffee. "Don't look so surprised. We both know you were never a good fit for him. I told him that before the wedding. He only married you out of guilt." I didn't move. I didn't flinch. I didn't give her anything. But inside, Something was breaking, and something stronger was replacing it. She thought she could tear me down while pretending to be kind. She thought silence meant weakness. But she didn't know I was watching, listening in my own way, waiting. That night, Daniel and Grace went into the study and closed the door. I stayed in the hallway just around the corner. The house was quiet. I couldn't hear their voices, but I didn't need to. I peeked through the crack between the door and the frame. Grace sat on the couch, her face twisted with frustration. Daniel paced the room. They both looked tense, angry. And then I saw something that made my blood run cold. My name on a document. It was on the table in front of them. Daniel tapped the paper and spoke fast. Grace gestured wildly, mouthing words I couldn't fully make out except one. Sign? Sign? Sign what? I backed away before they saw me and returned to the guest room. I couldn't hear what they were planning. But I was starting to understand. They were up to something they thought I couldn't stop. But I wasn't going to sit in silence forever. 2 days before my world shattered again, I sat alone in Dr. Patel's office, watching her lips carefully. She smiled and said the words I'd been dreaming of since the accident. Your hearing is back. My eyes filled with tears. For the first time in weeks, I heard the soft hum of the air conditioner, the shuffle of papers, the sound of her pen tapping against her clipboard. It was overwhelming, like coming back to life. Dr. Patel reached across the desk and placed her hand over mine. You can tell your husband now, she said gently. He'll be so happy. I smiled, but something inside me didn't move. Not joy, not relief, just stillness. I didn't tell Daniel. I didn't tell anyone. I went home in silence, pretending, observing, waiting. I moved through the house like a ghost, like I still lived behind glass. But now I was listening, really listening. And what I heard broke me. It happened the next morning. Grace was in the kitchen, slicing fruit like she owned the place. Daniel leaned against the counter, sipping coffee. Neither of them saw me in the hallway. I stood there quietly, heart pounding in my chest. I'm tired of dragging this out, Grace whispered. Just get her to sign the transfer papers, the house, the account. You're her husband. She'll believe you. Daniel didn't answer right away. He set the mug down and rubbed his temples. I've tried. She trusts me, but I don't know how long I can fake this. Fake this. She's too naive to suspect anything, Grace added. Especially now. What's she going to do? Scream? Call a lawyer? She can't even hear herself think. Daniel laughed quietly. Yeah, it's easier this way. She doesn't interrupt, doesn't ask questions. I hate to say it, but being married to her like this, it's kind of convenient. I stopped breathing. My hands shook as I pressed my back against the wall. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about everything. Every smile, every kiss, every lie. You know, Daniel continued, sometimes I wonder what it would have been like with Vanessa. She wouldn't have needed me like this. Grace gave a sarcastic chuckle. She also wouldn't have given you access to all this money. He didn't argue. I waited for the twist, for him to defend me, to say he still loved me, that I was worth more than an inheritance or a quiet house. But it never came. Instead, he said the one sentence that burned itself into my bones. If she never hears again, I won't be upset. My mouth dropped open. The man I loved, the man I gave my life to, didn't want me to heal. He wanted me to stay broken, so he could keep using me. I backed away slowly, holding back a sob. My foot caught the edge of a table and the corner scraped the wall. A tiny sound, but enough for Grace to turn her head. She peeked into the hallway, eyes narrowing. Did she hear that? She whispered. Daniel followed her gaze and shrugged. She can't hear a thing, probably just wandering around again. I ducked into the laundry room and leaned against the washer, hands trembling. I wanted to scream. not because of the betrayal, but because I had believed him. Even in the silence, I believed in him. And now, I had to face the truth. The man I married didn't love me. He loved the version of me that couldn't speak, couldn't hear, couldn't fight back. But he didn't know that I was back now, fully, completely, and listening. He didn't know I heard every word of that conversation. And something inside me clicked. I wasn't going to cry anymore. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to listen and plan. For 2 whole days, I said nothing. I played deaf, dumb, and dependent. I smiled when Daniel kissed my forehead. I nodded when Grace asked if I wanted tea. I stared at them both as they plotted, never blinking. But behind the silence, I was preparing everything. They thought I was still the same fragile, helpless woman, the one who needed someone to read lips, write things down, hold her hand in crowded rooms. But that Anna no longer existed. That Anna died the day I heard my husband say he preferred me broken. I waited until they left for the store, together, like always. Grace rode up front now. She didn't even pretend to hide it. The second their car turned the corner, I locked the door and ran upstairs. I opened the safe in the closet, the one my mom left me the code to before she passed. My fingers shook as I pulled out the documents. Property deeds, bank statements, her last will and testament. She hadn't left it all to me out of pity. She'd done it because she knew. Knew Daniel was too charming, too smooth, too calculating. Knew he would try something like this if he thought I was alone. And now he had. With shaking hands, I took pictures of every single page. I uploaded them to a secure folder in the cloud, emailed copies to my old lawyer, and one to a new one I found through a friend. Someone sharp, female, ruthless. Then I opened the drawer and pulled out the small digital recorder I'd bought quietly the day after I got my hearing back. I'd kept it in my robe pocket ever since. Always on, always listening. I replayed their conversation from 2 days ago. Daniel's voice, clear as day. If she never hears again, I won't be upset. Grace. She's too naive to suspect anything. Click, save, upload. Back it up 3 times. They had no idea I had evidence. They had no idea I could fight. That night, I cooked their favorite meal, pasta Alfredo with garlic bread, and smiled like nothing had changed. Grace laughed over wine, tossing her hair. Anna, you should really consider seeing someone about your hearing. It's such a shame to live like this. I nodded slowly. I will, when I'm ready. Daniel raised his glass and winked. You're strong. You'll get there. I looked at him across the candlelight, and for the first time, I saw a stranger. A man who once held me as I cried after my mother's funeral, now scheming to steal her house. A man who once memorized my favorite songs, now pretending I was easier to love in silence. They thought I was broken. But really, I was watching, planning, waiting. The next morning, I booked a hotel under a different name. Quiet, far away, paid in cash. I packed a small bag, left it under the bed. The lawyer called. She'd reviewed the files. She was already drafting a cease and desist for Daniel and Grace. Said my case was airtight. You've been smart, Anna, she told me. You're not just going to get justice, you're going to get everything. I stared out the window at the garden Daniel never watered. The broken swing my mom once pushed me on. The house he wanted to steal. No, I wouldn't let him have it. That night, after they fell asleep, I stood at the foot of the bed and watched them. He had his arm around Grace now. No guilt, no shame, just smug satisfaction. I almost pitied them. They really believed they'd won, but they didn't know the truth. The deaf woman in the next room, she could hear everything now, and tomorrow, she would speak. The morning was quiet, too quiet. Grace was already gone when I woke up. Daniel sat in the kitchen, sipping his coffee, reading his usual news on his phone. He didn't even glance at me when I walked in. Morning, I signed lazily. He smiled without looking. Morning, sweetheart. I sat across from him, calm, silent, but inside a storm had been waiting, and today it would finally rise. He folded his paper and glanced up. You okay? I nodded. Then slowly I opened my mouth. I heard everything. The words stopped time. Daniel froze. His face went blank, like someone had wiped it clean. His mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. I stood. I got my hearing back a week ago, I said, steady and slow. But I wanted to see who you really were, and now, I know. He blinked, disbelief giving way to panic. What are you talking about? I heard you. Telling Grace you preferred me deaf. Telling her I was too naive to stop you from stealing what my mother left me. Daniel stood, knocking over his chair. Anna, listen. I've been listening, I snapped, for days. Every whisper, every plan, every lie. He tried to reach for me, but I stepped back. No, don't touch me. I pulled my phone from my pocket and played the recording. His voice filled the kitchen. If she never hears again, I won't be upset. She's too naive to suspect anything. He went pale. You recorded me? Every word, I said. It's with my lawyer now, along with the deed to this house, the trust in my name, and proof you tried to manipulate me into signing it away. He sank into the chair, like the weight of his lies had finally crushed him. You don't understand. I didn't mean to hurt you. You already did, I whispered. Right then, the front door opened. Grace strolled in, holding coffee and a smug grin, until she saw my face, and Daniel's. What's going on? She asked. I know, I said simply. I know everything. Her jaw tightened. She's bluffing. I played the recording again. Her voice was on it too, the color drained from her face. You little... Careful, I warned. Everything has been documented. If either of you come near me after today, I'll file a restraining order so fast your heads will spin. They stared at me like I'd turned into someone else, and I had. The woman they mocked, pitied, lied to, she was gone. I went to the bedroom and wheeled out my suitcase. On the way back down, I stopped in front of the wedding photo still hanging on the wall. I stared at it for a moment, then left it there, let it haunt him. Daniel followed me out onto the porch. Anna, please, we can fix this. I made a mistake. I love you. No, I said, staring him down. You loved the quiet. You loved control. But not me. I turned and walked away. No dramatic goodbye, no second thoughts, just peace. A car waited for me at the curb. My lawyer had sent it. The moment I stepped inside, I felt like I could breathe again. The sunlight hit my face as we pulled away. I didn't cry. I didn't look back. For the first time in weeks, I felt powerful. What would you have done if you were Anna? Would you have stayed silent longer, or left the moment your hearing came back? Tell us in the comments. If this story moved you, don't forget to like and subscribe for more powerful true life dramas. Hit the bell so you never miss the next jaw-dropping twist. I stood by the stairs